Welcome to Milk for the Masses with Ezra Muse, my first episode, and I also have a message for Bad Omens. They are playing in Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne soon, and I can't understand why they can't just come to New Zealand and play a little show here where they've got the most beautiful fans waiting for them. Okay, sorry.
What are we talking about today?
We are talking about how negativity, fights, and arguments can actually be really beneficial, and not just for a relationship, but to your life, as I have experienced. Because if you pay attention to times where you are anxious, upset, worried, there may be a reason for that, and it could be to save your life. Have you ever had one of those experiences where arguments and internal being upset and being moody has actually been a good thing? Like maybe you missed a flight.
Yeah.
Maybe you were saved from an accident. I had this one time where we were, you and I were going to a big day out. It was a yearly festival in Auckland, and bands like Muse were playing there.
Yeah.
And we had free tickets. We were given free tickets, and we really wanted to go, and it didn't seem like anything bad. And so we were stoked, and so we went that day, found a car park that looked reasonable. Everybody else was parked there, thought nothing of it, went in, and we started walking through the festival to probably get to a stage. And do you remember just how upset and agitated we were? Like, I was just like, I don't like this. Something isn't sitting right with me. I don't feel peace. In the finish, you may have got irritated as well, and we're both kind of there grumpy, and you shouldn't be at a music festival grumpy.
No.
And I think randomly, just out of the blue, we're like, maybe it was half an hour in.
Yeah.
We were like, should we just can this and go home?
Yeah.
Lucky we did, because we left the premises, we left the festival, and as we were coming back to our car about to be barred and put on a tow truck, ours was the next car in line. And we were young, we were poor, and we could not afford a $500 fee to be able to get it from.
Right.
That is just one tiny little example of when you're really agitated, but it's actually for a reason, and you got to start listening to yourself instinctively. And so I think I ran up to the guy and I was like, hey, wait, this is our car, we're leaving. And he's like, you shouldn't park here. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Us and a bunch of others thought we could. And so we got in the car and we got on out of there.
It's quite interesting because those are experiences where it seemed fine. We went and then it changed. I guess this kind of like opens up to the fact of being flexible, which is harder for some people.
It is. Yeah.
Because wouldn't you want to say, let's just keep going until the night time and make the most of that free ticket?
Because yes. Yeah. And yet, if we had done that, the concert wouldn't have been free anyway, because we would have ended up being, it's like $500. We'd have been $250. Yeah. And then just the nuisance of trying to get like because that was before Uber or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't even know. This was circa 2005, 6. But it's interesting how, like, from another perspective, so we're talking about how negativity can save you, but interesting how if you follow those premonitions, you can end up getting some really positive experiences.
Yeah.
Like you will see something that happens out in nature that no one else will see, because you're like, maybe we should just go and have a look at this. Or, you know, do you feel like a nighttime walk?
Yeah.
Or something random, and you get to see something incredible that only your eyes get to see.
Yeah.
And that right there is listening to, you're just following where you should go. And but getting back to the experience, another one where we were actually fighting, you and I were fighting. Oh man, it was petty, but it's not ever petty. When somebody says you're petty fighting, it's probably true, but it doesn't feel petty at the time.
Yeah.
So we were on our way to a fireworks display.
Yeah,
it was Guy Fawkes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was a public one, a commercial. Yeah, we were going to a race course. We were paying customers, but we were fighting in the way in the car.
Yeah.
And I remember getting out of the car and walking along the street and just being furious. Like, I hated you in that moment, and probably vice versa. And like, how you just, when you're in public and you're fighting, you just suck it up.
Yeah.
And you're like, now that we're out of the car, we're kind of keeping it together and we're just attending.
Yeah.
And it's really awkward. We got into the crowd, and I think our tremendous pain and our argument, our negativity, the fighting, the upsetness was too much.
Yeah. And
in the finish, again, we decided to leave and just walk on away.
Yeah.
And get out of there, because, we were like, it was just like, well, maybe we were just like, fine, let's go home. Fine.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because we were very close to the ticket counter.
Really?
No, not 10 meters away from the ticket counter, and it just kept on blowing up, like worse and worse and worse, and like, I just don't want to do this.
Between you and I?
Yeah, I was just like, I don't want to do this. I just don't want to sit here.
Do you remember what was over?
No. Do I remember half what fights are over? No. But no, I didn't remember what it was. But it felt severe enough, to stop us from actually going, and what ended up being quite a dangerous night.
It was, because those like pyrotechnics become guns, and it like pointed
like
into the
missiles,
crowd.
Explosives.
Yeah, like a missile, and it pointed into the crowd. And I read in the paper the next day that it had exploded into the crowd.
Yeah.
And there were people who had wound up in hospital from it.
Serious injuries, yeah.
Yeah. And luckily we could have been in that spot, but we were so busy fighting that we didn't go there. But it was like lucky. It was like next day it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thankful for that argument.
Yeah.
Thankful for that. Like, it didn't make sense at the time, but like, I wouldn't have wanted to be in hospital.
No.
And it's amazing how much, like, what seems like negative things in the beginning, or what confronts as a negative thing, isn't necessarily always that bad. Maybe it's there to stop you. Maybe it's there to prevent you from that. And it's amazing how, like, our life is prolonged. I mean, always they say when accidents can happen, but it's like there's always things that could have been much worse.
Yeah.
It always could have been worse in somehow or another. And you think, how could it get any worse? It could have been worse. Yeah. It could have been so much more disasters. Every disaster could have been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not saying that it's not bad.
Yeah.
It just actually could have been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes people may just feel like things are just consistently wrong, or they just feel always like, I'm always agitated.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like everything's wrong, like, just continually agitated. I guess we now call it following the peace, where you just go, now I don't have peace about this. Like, I don't feel rested. I don't feel peaceful. And you sit back and go, what's wrong?
Yeah.
What's actually wrong, until you get some sort of divine intervention, and, you get a sense of what's...
It's a very good point. But you have to have an anchor of peace.
Yeah.
And like, so you're like, okay, I feel peaceful. And then if you're not peaceful about it and you're agitated, that's when it's like, you gotta, I'm getting away from my foundation of living. My foundation of living is living in peace.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm not like being super progressive and ambitious.
Yeah.
But I'm actually getting away. I'm getting agitated. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like when you chopped off your finger in Malaysia.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That day was just yuck.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel peaceful. Yeah. I guess to summarize is that when you are going through a massive negative situation, you've got to ask yourself, why? What's happening? Is this something I need to see? Is something really toxic right now?
Yeah.
Like, am I dealing with a toxic person? Is this a toxic situation? Am I about to step into something that could ruin my life forever?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Like, you've really got to ask yourself that. Yeah. And maybe you're already just deep in it.
Yeah.
Maybe you're deep in it. That would be hard, but you really got to ask yourself those things. And so that's why sometimes arguing, fighting, being anxious, and that can be beneficial. And I would hate to mask that up, because sometimes it's needed. When you live a life, when your baseline is peace, sometimes it's important not to try and just mask up episode of anxiousness
Yeah.
when your baseline is peace.
Yeah.
Because how can you tell?
It's true.
You know, otherwise it gets like really blurry. So